Faith is generally defined as one's foundational moral and/or ethical belief in non-verifiable phenomena, scripture, acts, or practice to venerate a higher power and their doctrine. For most people in union space, faith might intertwine with reality, but they still aren't one and the same. Then, how would one that can see their living God with their own eyes, floating right outside of their window, define faith itself? Beyond the most distant border of union space from cradle, beyond the boundary garden, the Onic people, descendants of Armstrong, one of the 10 that survived the fall, chosen people of Metat Aun, their living God, Monist II, persisted as a civilization for roughly 15,000 years, 4 generations on board their generation ship, following their sister ship, Rilia, which didn't survive the journey, and many millennia on their destination world, Unlist, the garden. Organized under religious leadership since the dawn of their civilization, first under the Aunic to originally maintain peace and stability in the incredibly long journey on board the Armstrong, the Aun have undergone a series of miraculous, civilization-wide revelations, prompting staggering civic and cultural change that transformed their society into their present form, as the Aunic Ascendancy. Billions of souls guided to a degree by Metat Aun and its immortal speaker, Ors, state, and faith combined to a degree that there isn't a difference. To the Aun, faith isn't something you believe in, it just is. Like gravity is a constant, time travels in a linear fashion, and Metat Aun is a living God. To them, faith is a fundamental reality, they don't disappear because you don't believe in them. Just as Ra sowed the seed for union to discover and exploit blink space, Metat Aun gifted the Aun the knowledge of firmament, a sort of parallel space to blink space with a different yet similar paracausal utility. Faster than light technology to communicate between worlds, let the Aun literally walk to another world, travel between the stars instantaneously with ship-mounted drive, and the technology to form hard light, a stable beam that can both shield and cut, burn through matter and yet safe to touch. Almost all manners of the Onic military uses hard light weaponry and shielding from infantry to naval scale. To the Union, the Aun's access to firmament for faster than light travel without relying on blink space could potentially overcome the Union's monopoly over FTL travel with OmniNet and Blinkgate, and thus could even present a viable alternative model to organizing the known galaxy. To put it shortly, the Aun could potentially be a short and long-term threat to Union's hegemony. This uncomfortable political and strategic reality has haunted Union's governing body since first contact under the First Committee. Worse, the Union and Aunic Ascendancy are currently at war at the very edge of their borders, the boundary garden. The Aun never had a good impression of the Union throughout their history. First was when they intruded on their garden world by reaching it first. Second was when Union and Aunic force almost came into conflict during the First Cornucopia Civil War, and third, was when Union launched Piston 1, a mass shotgun-style kinetic strike aimed towards Aunic space that will only reach it millennia after the one who fired it were long dead, and it disappeared. With diplomatic ties completely cut off for practically 2,000 years, both the Union and Aunic Ascendancy knew nothing but general and biased ideas of each other, and when Union completed Farsapan Blink Station in Boundary Garden somewhere after 5000 U, the Aunic Ascendancy had enough of Union trespassing on their territory and launched a full-scale attack that managed to destroy the Blink Station, the very first case happening in the entire history of Union, in order to form a hard border against the Union. As of 5016 U, the conflict on Cornucopia is still ongoing, and the relief fleet will not be arriving until years later, still undergoing relativistic travel ever since the conflict started. Cornucopia wasn't just some random world either. It was a world where Union and Aunic force almost came into conflict millennia ago. It was a world where ecumenical Aun fled to after the Aunic schism that created the Aunic Ascendancy, forming a government in exile, and despite the embargoes between Aunic and Union space, people still traded, migrated, and settled in Boundary Garden. The war in Boundary Garden is less a first contact war, and more a war between neighboring worlds familiar with one another. It is without a doubt that this conflict will eventually force the Union to answer one of its most difficult questions to its foundation: should all of humanity be encompassed under the Union's hegemony? But, that's a question for Union, not the Aun. I got something else for them instead. Even when guided by Ors, who is widely regarded as the voice of Metat, the Ascendancy's edicts must still be interpreted by mortals with interests, desires, and goals both petty and grand. While majority of Aunic people support the war, there is still a minority that opposes it, and the Aunic people, even before the war, views those outside of the garden in different ways depend on who you ask, either as someone they should accept and help, or to be dominated and forced to convert. Even guided by a living God under the Ascendancy, humans are still humans after all. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.